So Wednesday, 29th of March. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. And just we're getting all the way down to the end of the month of March. But first, very quickly, let's touch base with our markets across the continent. On Tuesday, the Nigerian market has slowed down by about 1.16% as we saw a bit of a sell-off in some of the big names across the market. The BRVM fell by roughly 20 basis points. The Egyptian market was in the red by just around 0.1%, just about 8 basis points. The Nairobi market was down by 24, but the South African GSE was an outlier, 1.01%. The GSE All-Share Index up to a higher level of 76,000 when the market closed in Joburg. So that's quite a very decent day in Johannesburg. But let's put that aside and just move on and grab a couple of headlines making the rounds in East Africa. The Central Bank of Kenya, under Patrick Njoroge, is expected to raise interest today because the country is crunching. Foreign exchange liquidity is getting tougher and biting harder as Kenyans face rising inflation. The cost of food and other items, including core items, core products, are getting a little bit tougher. There's a whole lot of challenge for the new administration of President William Ruto. In the meantime, Equity Group, Kenya's largest bank by asset, reporting estimated 15% jump in its net profit to about 468 billion shillings for the full year 2022. That's around 350 million US dollars. And Tanzania is reporting the banks are pledging further cuts in interest rates to customers in order to lend more into the small and medium enterprises in the East African economy. The International Monetary Fund team on the ground is working on a new funding program for Ethiopia after the country economy was knocked by the prolonged war over the Tigray region in the northern part of the country. Now, a new deal is being worked out with Prime Minister Abiy's administration in Addis Ababa after a peace agreement was signed a couple of months ago. And Ethiopia is looking at a further reform within the banking and the telecommunication industry. The capital of Rwanda, Kigali, is hosting the World Travel Market, Tourism, the conference, Annual Conference 2023 is taking place here in Kigali, the very beautiful city of the Rwanda. Let's keep an eye on that. While we move on to West Africa, where Geregu Power's chairman, Femi Otedola, billionaire businessman, says Nigerians need to do a more faster and impactful power sector reform. Says very disappointed. He was speaking on the Nigerian exchange floor for the closing gong on Tuesday. He says it's disappointing that since independence, Nigeria hasn't been able to really raise its electricity output beyond 5,000 megawatts. He says the country needs to move faster and better in terms of electricity generation and output. And Nigeria's largest bank by market cap, Zenith Bank, reporting full year 2022 earnings, beating gross earnings up roughly 25% to about $945 billion, just a few billions away from 1 trillion naira mark. In the United States, speaking through the Vice President Kamala Harris in Accra, Ghana, says it's going to support the West African country with about $140 million for the Ghana's 2024 fiscal year appropriations. And that's some good news that Ghana got from the visit of the VP Kamala Harris, who's left Accra and is touching down in Tanzania today to meet with President Suluhu Hassan and the rest of her team. Ghana says it's gotten approval from the board of directors of the EFDB group for a funding roughly 28.4 million US dollars to boost the country's renewable energy, to raise the percentage of renewable energy in Ghana to about 10% by the year 2030. And the central banks for the common West African, French-speaking economies have raised interest rates by 50 basis points. We've seen interest rate hike across a few African economies since the start of March. South Africa is Southern Africa is where we're touching down with Tungela's dividend dipping down on the back of that problems with Transnet, which is yet abate. The GSE listed West Property Holdings says it's looking to list on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange in Zimbabwe, while the Bank of Namibia this morning released its annual 2022 report, as well as held a conference on economic outlook for the country. Eskom says it's exiting Uganda after running 2 power stations at a very up-to-speed availability rate about 67 or 97%, of the pardon, against around 64%, which is run in South Africa. Eskom is that South Africa's utility giant in problem did a whole lot more running business in Uganda than it's doing back at home in South Africa. Okay, let's sum it up in North Africa, where Egypt has issued a 5-year multiple entry visa at about $700 for about 180 countries, where the country says its foreign trade was about $30 billion in its first quarter of 2022 and 2023. And Tunisia's Maghrebia Insurance says its main indicators were up for the full year 2022 on the same exchange in Tunis-based Smart Company, which is an IT solutions company, says its full year 2022 was about $18.087 million. That's roughly $5.7 million in terms of consolidated profit. And those were some of your headlines this Wednesday as we get the trading day started. Keep it on here on Frontier Africa Report. I am Bosun Namafai. I'll see you next time.